Hi guys, so today is going to be the first part of my bookshelf tour. Today I'll be focusing on this bookshelf. The way I'm going to organize it is going to be kind of book by book or series by series. So yeah, I'm just going to probably get through this first bookshelf today. These are the Billy bookshelves, and this one is kind of my special edition bookshelf. Obviously they're not all of them, but since this is in my living room, this is kind of like the pretty books kind of section. I usually organize my bookshelves by series and genre, but this one is a little more loosey-goosey than I would say I normally do. My sister actually kind of helped with this one, so yeah, mostly fantasy, if not all fantasy, but yeah, we'll just get started because I don't know how long this video is gonna be. So first, I'm going to go over this top shelf over here. Yeah, so I'll just go one by one. So let's get started. First off, we have this trilogy from Kat Dunn. The first book is Dangerous Remedy, Monstrous Design, and Glorious Poison. I have not read these books yet, but these are the Illumicrate editions, and I'm very excited to get to them. Next is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I think it's a trilogy, but there's also a bonus short story over here, I think. And these are the Owlcrate editions by Carissa Broadbent. I have not read this series yet, even though I know it's very popular. I've just kind of been waiting for the right moment. I have this copy of This Cursed Light by Emily Theod. I only have this first copy because I have the UK editions, and so these dust jackets that I got from, I believe, Fox and Wit only fit the US editions, so I just need to buy the second book in hardcover, because I believe I do have the dust jacket, I just don't have the US hardcover yet. But I love this art. I have not read this. I believe it's a duology. I have not read it yet, but I think I'm going to really like it. So next up, I have this Owlcrate book that came in the young adult fantasy box, and it is called Omen of Ice by Juice Saccardo. On here it says, "When a fae falls in love, it's forever." I'm really excited for this book. I have not read it yet. I don't know if it's part of a series or not, but it's just such a stunning book, and I do really want to get to this. Next on my shelves, I have this, I don't know if it's a series or a duology, but these are the first two books. We have To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn and To Shadow the Night. I believe this first copy originally had sprayed pages for the first printing, but I did not get it at that point. With this second book, I did get the first printing, so I believe this is sort of a romance fantasy series. I have not read it, but I've heard good things about it, so I did pick up these first two books. These next two books you've seen before. These are the Owlcrate editions of the Six of Crows duology. This is one of my favorite duologies of all time, so you know I had to get these. But yeah, these covers are just so stunning. They have sprayed pages as well. I have so many copies of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, it's kind of insane, but 2015 was a really big reading year for me, so yeah, these just have a very special place in my heart, so really, really happy that I have these copies. Next on my shelves, I have I think it's the Illumicrate edition of The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid. Funny enough, I have not read an Ava Reid book yet, which is kind of wild because she's written quite a few. This one calls out to me the most out of all the books she's published. I do want to get to her soon. I don't know why I've been putting her off, but I have. But yeah, this is an adult fantasy book. It's really, really pretty. Hoping to get to it soon. The next book on my shelf is After the Forest by Kel Woods. This is a fairy tale retelling, and I believe this is the Illumicrate edition. From what I remember, I believe this is a Hansel and Gretel retelling, which actually is my least favorite fairy tale of all time. When I was a kid, it used to scare me so bad. Like, the idea of being eaten by a witch and like put in the oven was just so horrifying. So yeah, I originally was gonna sell this copy, but then I'd heard some really, really good things about this book, so it made me kind of want to hold on to it. So maybe this will be the Hansel and Gretel retelling that I need to change my mind. Next on my shelves, you'll see this kind of ridiculous collection of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. See if I remember what's what. I believe this is the Illumicrate edition, the Forbidden Planet edition, the Waterstones, and the anniversary edition. I have read this book, finally a book I've read, and I gave it, I think, 4 stars. I did like it. I don't love it. I definitely don't warrant having 4 copies. But it was one of the better V.E. Schwab books for me. So yeah, I will probably pare this collection down a little bit. It's just like, I'm sure you've noticed that editions like have special material and all of them look slightly different, and it just puts that like FOMO in me. I think if I had to pare it down, I would probably keep this Illumicrate edition and the anniversary edition. But yeah, there's like different hidden covers underneath these, so we'll see when I can finally part with some of these copies. Second to last on this shelf, we have the quintessential introvert college students book, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This is the sort of special edition that they came out with. I read this book not when I was a freshman in college. I think I was a little older. I think I was still in college though. But yeah, this was very relatable if you were the kind of like freshman who just holed up in your dorm and like was too shy and introverted to speak to anyone. So yeah, this is a really cute book. Out of all of Rainbow Rowell's books, I think this one is probably my favorite. It's the only one I think I own currently. Yeah, this is a nice edition. It's been a while since I've reread it, so I kind of want to give it another read. It's a good like winter read, so I need to maybe try to get it in before it warms up too much. Oh, and real quick, here is the back. It's the 10th anniversary edition. So last on this shelf is probably a book I should get rid of because I have had it for a while and I just have not gotten to it, but every time I reread the synopsis, like before I put it in the get rid of pile, it always sounds really good, so I always end up keeping it. This was a book box edition. I can't remember which one. Fairy Loot. I have not read it yet, obviously, but it's not that long of a book, so I should be able to get through it pretty quickly, and I believe it's just a standalone, so I really need to prioritize getting through some of my older standalone fantasies. But yeah, this is Year of the Reaper. But yes, that is this top shelf. Moving down. For this shelf, we're at a bit of a worse angle, but I'll do my best. You can kind of tell that the theme for this shelf is sort of reds and golds. think it turned out pretty nice. I still maybe will move some stuff around at some point, but yeah, I do really like how this shelf looks, so let's get into them. This first book is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the Waterstones exclusive edition. I have read this book and I really liked it. It's one of my favorite Leigh Bardugo books. So yeah, I really highly enjoyed it. I think I've reviewed it on this channel even. But yeah, this is the Waterstones edition with the sprayed pages. But yeah, really enjoyed that one. The book next to it is also The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. And this is the Fairy Loot edition. I love this cover. I think it's so pretty. You can see the scorpions on the front. This is a historical fantasy, so I think this copy definitely captures those vibes. Overall, I just really love this book. So I often collect Leigh Bardugo book copies, and usually there's a fair amount of special editions, so this is just one of those. This is one of the coolest books that I have, I would say, in terms of cover and like sprayed pages. It's called Tales of a Monstrous Heart by Jennifer Delaney. This is the Goldsboro edition, so that's why it has this sort of shiny film on top of it. It very much has the look of like an old book. But my favorite aspect, obviously, are these really cool sprayed pages where it looks like there's a creature coming out of the book. It's so cool. I have not read this book yet, but I'm just know I'm going to love it. So the next book is the 10th anniversary edition of The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I've heard about this adult fantasy series for years and years. The reason I have not read it is because the author has not released the final third book, and it's been like years and years, like over a decade. I don't even remember when the second one came out. And there's a lot of like speculation that he might not ever finish it, so I've decided to collect them and then wait until I hear news, and then I will get to them. Like, there's just so many other books that are out that have series that are actually being completed, so I'd rather get to those than start a book that I might not know the end to for like another decade, and I don't want to have to reread. So this is sort of me banking on Patrick finishing this series. But yeah, this is the very pretty 10th anniversary edition. It has red sprayed pages. There's not one for the second book yet, but maybe they will come up with that. The next book is one you'll see I have 2 copies of, and they look almost exactly the same. This one I'm a little ashamed of. So one of these is the Fox and Wit edition, and one of these is the, I believe, the Illumicrate edition. And I'm just so torn on which one I want to keep. This sounds really silly, but this one has darker red pages and it is deckled edges. And this one has lighter red and is straight. I think one is the UK and one is the US. And I just don't know which one I want to keep. I know this should be an easy decision. I think one of them is signed. I think this one is signed. Otherwise I would have kept this one, like, for sure. But this is just my section of shame, so look away. This next book is The Temptation of Magic by Megan Scott. This was the, I believe, the Fairy Loot young adult book last year sometime, and it just sounded really good. At the top it says, "Sworn to be enemies, destined to be each other's undoing." Yeah, it sounded like a really good book, and since I didn't get it in my subscription, I just bought it secondhand. It has sprayed edges. Yeah, just excited to get to this one. This next book is another repeat. It's the Illumicrate edition of The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. It has a quote from the book on the cover, and it's just a plain, naked hardcover. It's really pretty gold foiling. And it also has gold sprayed pages as well. Again, I just really loved this book, so I decided it was worthwhile having a couple copies. This next book is Dragon Rider by Taryn Matheru. This is a really pretty believe, broken binding edition that has sprayed pages on it. It has a dragon. Just really cool. I believe the next book is coming out this year, so I have pre-ordered that. Yeah, really excited to read this. I love adult fantasy about dragons, so. Next is The Stars Undying by Emery Robin. I believe this is a sci-fi slash fantasy book. It's the first book in a series. I have not read it yet, but the very top says an epic tale of love and conquest. I've heard really good things about it, so again, this is another one I'm really looking forward to. Next, these are the Illumicrate editions of She Who Became the Sun and He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. I've heard, again, amazing things about this fantasy duology as well. This is adult fantasy, and these are the Illumicrate editions. The Broken Binding also did really stunning editions of this duology, but I got the Illumicrate ones first, so yeah, really stunning duology. I am excited to read it. Next, we have the Blood Heir trilogy by Emily Wynne Zhao. I have read this trilogy and I really liked it. These are the UK covers and they're just so pretty. And if you want to know, these first three are the Illumicrate editions. They have the blood dripping down the spine, or not the spine, the edges. And then I do own another set. And these are the Goldsboro editions with the plain red sprayed pages. I really loved this trilogy. I believe it was her debut young adult fantasy trilogy, and now she's writing adult fantasy. So yeah, I highly recommend this trilogy if you haven't read it. It's really good. And that is it for the second shelf. Moving down, this is the third shelf. This is a sort of like black with like metallic and some spots of color. Again, there's not total cohesion, but yeah, this is the next shelf, so let's get into it. First off, this is the Foundry Side trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. I'm not sure if that's the title of the trilogy, but this is a trilogy I've heard a lot of good things about, especially from Reagan from Peruse Project, and just from reading the synopsis, it sounds so interesting, and I've been excited to get to it for years. I don't know why I keep putting it off. I have this tendency to put off books that I think I'll really like. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because like my expectations are so high, or I'm trying to like prolong the enjoyment, or I don't know. But I am really excited to get to these eventually. And these are just the regular US hardcovers. Up next we have the Book of the Ice trilogy by Mark Lawrence, starting with The Girl in the Stars, The Girl in the Mountain, and The Girl and the Moon. Again, this is another series or trilogy I have not read yet, but I'm very excited to read some of Mark Lawrence. I've bought a lot of his books. I own a lot of them, but I actually have not gotten to any of them yet. So yeah, I think the first book was like an Illumicrate edition, but then they didn't end up doing the sequels. So these two are just the regular UK hardcovers. Up next we have the Illumicrate special editions of Ninth House and Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. I love these two books very much. I think there's going to be a third book as well, but I'm not totally sure. Funny enough, Illumicrate had done a special edition of Ninth House previously, but they decided to redo them once they had more like exclusive like changes that they could make to the book. So yeah, I actually do have that other book, but these are the most recent special editions of Ninth House and also Hellbent. I really liked this duology. It's funny, Hellbent, the second book, has very like divisive ratings. Either people loved it or didn't like it near as much as the first book, and I loved Hellbent. I loved it so much. I really like Ninth House too. I just think that there are some pacing issues with the first book. It dragged in some spots, but Hellbent never dragged. So I just really enjoy this series so far, and I don't know when we'll get the third, but I'm excited for it. Up next we have The Black-Tongued Thief and The Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. This was a series that my sister really loves, and so I gave them a try for her, and I really enjoyed it too. I actually have not read The Daughter's War. This is a prequel, actually, following a different character. But I have read The Black Tongue Thief, and it's very witty, good, like sort of D&D type fantasy. It's really good. And I will read The Daughter's War eventually. These are the broken binding editions, so they have stenciled edges. Yeah, just a really solid, especially again, like if you like D&D, I think you'll really like this series. So I would highly recommend them. Up next, we have this trilogy from Kate Dramis. The third book is not out yet, but the first book is The Curse of Saints, and the second one is The Curse of Sins. I'm really excited to get to this series. I just like the covers alone are so stunning. These are the Goldsboro editions, and the first one obviously has a wolf, the other one has a bird, like a corvid of some kind. And I'm just really excited to, again, one of these series that like I really want to read it, so I keep putting it off, which makes no sense, but yeah. And I think the third book comes out either this year or next year, so I'm really excited to get to that one as well. I'd love to know what you think about books, if you like the dust jacket or if you like when they're just like plain naked hardbacks with the design printed straight onto the book. I don't really have a preference. I kind of like a mix of both. So the next book is Angel Mage by Garth Nix. I believe this was also an Illumicrate book. It definitely came from a subscription box. But funny enough, I have not read a Garth Nix book, which seems kind of wild because I know he's a very prolific fantasy author. So, and it's blurbed by Joe Abercrombie. I do want to get to this. Again, so many books, so little time. So, yeah. I'm very curious to know what I'll think of Garth Nix's writing. Next up, we have The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Shannon Chakraborty is the author of The City of Brass, the Devabad trilogy. I have not read that fantasy series yet, but I am looking forward to it. I think this is like a sort of pirate nautical fantasy, which is generally not my thing. I don't tend to really love books set like on the ocean for some reason, but I've heard such good things about this, and I believe it follows like a mother in her 40s, and I just love that. I actually recently read a fantasy series following like an older woman, which you just don't usually see in fantasy, and I really loved it, so I am looking forward to this book. And lastly on this shelf, we have the Red Rising series. I only have the first three because these are the Iron editions from Fairy Loot, so I have not gotten the rest of the series yet. But over to the left, we have the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I believe it has some like illustrations in it, and it's signed. I actually got this for my sister, but she ended up like not being interested in the series, so here I am now, stuck with all these. But I am interested in reading these. I know they're kind of hit or miss on whether or not people like them, but I kind of want to find out for myself. So we have Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. And again, there are more books in the series. I think the last book in the series is actually coming out early next year. But yeah, I just have the first three for now. So, and this is the last on this shelf. I'll go ahead and show you these. Also have really pretty sprayed pages, very space galaxy, which again, sci-fi isn't usually my thing, but I'm trying. I want to try. So that was it for that shelf, and moving on. So now I'm sitting on the floor, so bear with me. Here is the next shelf that we're gonna go through, and let's get started. First off, we have this duology by Emily Wen Zhao, who, yes, you will recognize that author, is the same author as the Blood Heir trilogy, and this is her next fantasy series. It's actually a duology, so we have Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, and Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White. These covers are so pretty. I originally had two copies of this first book. I had the Waterstones and the, I think, Illumicrate editions, but I was good and I got rid of the Waterstones, and I'm just keeping these really pretty editions with the sprayed pages. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah, just really stunning. heard really good things about this duology, and since I loved her previous trilogy, I know I'll love it, so. And next up we have the Waterstones edition of A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. It says every fire starts with a single spark, and it's just this really, really pretty edition with dragon art on the cover. It's funny, this book will always remind me of being in the UK, because I was in either England or Scotland when it came out, so I saw it in an actual Waterstones, and I wanted to bring it back with me, but I was like, I'd already ordered a copy, so there was no use. But yeah, this is a really, really pretty edition with really pretty sprayed pages. Yeah, stunning. And next up we have the first two books, and I don't know if this is going to be a series or if it's just a duology, but it's Spice Road and Serpent Sea by Maya Ibrahim. These covers are so stunning. These are both, I believe, Illumicrate editions. So we have Spice Road and Serpent Sea. I have not read these, but I am really looking forward to reading them because I've heard they're really good. And next up we have the two copies I have of this duology, The Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I have the Illumicrate editions over here, and then the Goldsboro editions over here. These just have plain sprayed pages, but they're also numbered and signed, so yeah, these books are too big to really justify having two copies on my shelves. I really need to read this series so that I can see if I like it enough to keep both copies or decide which pair I want to give away. But this is a Dragon Sapphic duology by Samantha Shannon, and I love Samantha Shannon. She wrote one of my favorite series of all time, so yeah, I don't know why I haven't gotten to these yet. I need to. And speaking of said favorite series of all time, well, one of them is the Bone Season series by Samantha Shannon. So this is what I was talking about. This is the Bone Season, the Mime Order, the Song Rising, and the Mask Falling. These are the first 4 books out in this series. Eventually there's going to be 7, I believe. And actually the Dark Mirror just came out the other day, and my copies are on their way. I've already read an early version of it, and I gave it 5 stars. I just love this series so much. It's so good. I started reading it back in like 2016, I want to say, somewhere around there, and 2015, 2016, I can't remember, but it's amazing. I have the original collector's editions, but these are the broken binding editions with really pretty sprayed pages, and I believe they're also signed. So yeah, really excited to finally get that next book in, and then we'll only have 2 more, which is just crazy to think about. And then lastly on this shelf we have the 6 Crimson Cranes duology by Elizabeth Lim. I believe her Radiant Curse is like a standalone set in the same world. I could be wrong. I haven't read these books yet, so I don't totally know with all the details, but these covers are just absolutely gorgeous. Fun fact, I've actually followed this artist for a long time, like since 2015, in a certain fandom. The artist is After Blossom, and she and I were in the same fandom, and she would always post beautiful art for it. So seeing her get to do these really pretty book covers is I'm just watching her live her best life, and I couldn't be happier. So yeah, these are really stunning editions. I believe they're the Illumicrate Fairy Loot, maybe? I can never know. Fairy Loot editions. They're just really stunning, and I really want to get to them soon. And so that was that shelf. We're getting to the end here, so thank you for your patience. Okay, so here is the second to last shelf. This is sort of my favorite shelf. My sister actually put this together, and I'm very proud of her because I love how it turned out. It's sort of like a sprayed edge, sort of monochrome, black, white, brown aesthetic. I just really like how it looks. Without further ado, let's just get into it. First off, we have the Fairy Loot special editions of The Kiss of Deception, The Heart of Betrayal, and The Beauty of Darkness. These are the 3 books in the Remnant Chronicles. I actually read this series for the first time earlier last year. Got really pretty sprayed pages. They came out a while ago and then blew up again on Book Talk. So I've had the old hardcover editions for a long time. I just never got to them for some reason. But I did finally get to them last year, and I really liked it. I think I gave them like 3.75, 3.5 stars. And really for me, anything that's over 3 is good, and I would recommend it. So yeah, I really liked it, especially if you like young adult fantasy. I think this is like a good young adult fantasy. Or if like you're looking to get into fantasy, I think this would be like a good starter one. It's just really good. Like, I highly enjoyed it. I would reread it again. And next up we have the duology that follows that trilogy. It's set in the same world, but we follow different characters. It is Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. Yeah, and I really liked these as well. I really liked this first book especially. I really enjoyed it. Vow of Thieves fell a little flat for me, but overall I still enjoyed it. It just didn't quite live up to Dance of Thieves in my opinion. But yeah, obviously I like these books enough to own a special edition set of them, so take from that what you will. Next up, you will definitely remember, or you will definitely know what these books are. These are the Fairy Loot editions of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. These are shelved as fantasy, but I would say this is very like fantasy light. The world building isn't really there, the writing isn't really there, but they are really entertaining. I'm not gonna knock that. They're really entertaining books. So yeah. And I just knew that once these books sold out, like they'd be sold at ridiculous prices on like Mercari or eBay. So I was like, well, you know what, I might as well get them now if I want to get rid of them later. Like, I'm sure someone will buy it for a decent price. So like, someone will definitely want these. So yeah, and I really like the art on the cover, really pretty. I know the third book is out. I have not read it. These are just for like when I don't want to think. If you want fantasy that's like light and like has a giant chunk of romance thrown in, and like you won't really have to think or question the logic of the world that much. You're just there for a good mindless read. I highly recommend these. They're really entertaining. Like, that's one thing I will say, the pacing is great for both of them. You'll fly through them. So yeah, those are these books. Next up we have Ordinary Monsters and Bringer of Dust by J.M. Miro. I am so excited to read these books. I have not yet. This is the Talents trilogy, and these are both the Goldsboro editions. So this one has feathers on it, and this one has like ghostly hands. I believe these are like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are like horror fantasy, and I just love the covers. I remember reading the premise and thinking it sounded like something I would really like. So yeah, even on the top of the left it says it's set in sort of an electrifying Victorian world, and I love anything with like historical influence. So yeah, just really excited to read these. I guess there's a third book coming out, so I'll have to keep my eye open for that. Hopefully by the time that one comes out, I will have read these two. Next up we have The Magician's Guild, The High Lord and the Novice by Rudy Canavan. Hopefully I said that right. This is a special edition set that Illumicrate did a little while back. This is actually an older fantasy series, like I think from the 2000s, the early 2000s. And I love fantasy that was written in the early 2000s. Like, it's where I grew up. It's like the kind of writing that I like the most. It speaks to my heart. And so I haven't read this series yet, but I'm really excited to read them. I want that feeling back in my soul. So yeah, really excited to get to these. These covers are absolutely gorgeous. They do have sprayed pages, but they're like very colorful, which I know some people like. I am not really a colorful person. I love like earth tones and neutrals and muted tones, so these covers definitely speak to me. Just a quick side note, I also tend to love books that are published under Orbit Publishing. Just noticed that, not sure why, but this next book is The City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This is a Fairy Loot exclusive book that I think was in a monthly box. It has sprayed pages. I did not purchase, oh, sorry if you hear traffic outside. I did not purchase the sequel to this book, and it's like out of stock, so I just kind of have this one-off first book in the series, but I want to read it to see if I like it enough to either try to hunt down the sequel copy or if I should just get like digital versions of the book if I didn't like it enough to get to keep these special editions. So anyways, yeah, I have not read this book yet, but it is fantasy and it does sound interesting, so I do want to give it a try. This next book is Autumn's Tithe by Hannah Parker. This was a book I got a long time ago. I used to get the Bookish box, I think was what it's called. It's still going. I got it. I only had that subscription back in like 2016, 2017 maybe, and I have not read it yet. But it's, I think, like an autumnal fairy-centered story, which is, you know, something that I like, so I do want to get to it. It's a very slim book, very small, but definitely has like the kind of vibe that I enjoy, so I do want to get to it. Last up are these gorgeous Illumicrate editions of The Empire of the Vampire and Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. I have not read any J. Kristoff. None of his series really interested me that much, but I do love vampires. And these covers are just so beautiful. Like, the more you look at them, the more details you can see, and like, I'm just so excited to read these. I've heard good things about them, and I know the third book is coming out later this year. It's the last in the trilogy, so I am definitely going to pick up the third book in this series because, again, these covers are so pretty and the sprayed pages are just like absolutely stunning. So yeah, excited to get to these. So that was the second to last shelf, and now we're on to the final shelf. Okay, you're gonna have to bear with me because this is like on the bottom of the floor and there's not much lower I can get. So this is the final shelf on this bookshelf. I always struggle with what to put on the bottom shelf because I don't like things getting dusty. I always feel bad for the books that are down there, so but let's just get started. First off, we have this signed Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of Kingdom of Ash. I actually got this for my sister back when she read this series, and then she DNF'd it, and I've just held on to it ever since because like I feel like it's worth a lot, kind of, and who knows, maybe one day I will give it to a friend or something, but for now, she sits here. Next up, we have the Fairy Loot, I believe, edition of the Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzin. I did read this book and I didn't love it. So I only have this copy left. The reason I've kept this copy is A, because Thea Guanzin is in the same fandom as me from 2015. If you know, you know. So I just want her to flourish, and I know a lot of other people like this book, so I decided to keep it just in case I ever wanted a shelf of fellow authors who ship the same ship that I ship. I would put her on it. And the second reason is because it's actually a really stunning edition. Like, the sprayed pages are so beautiful, and just like the foiling, I love this art, so I don't mind having this on my shelf. Next up, we have the These Hollow Vows duology by Lexi Ryan. These are the Fairy Loot editions. I just heard these are really fun, like fae-centered books. I don't know much about them, but I know a lot of people who have enjoyed them, so I've kept them on my shelves for now. Next up is The Will of the Many. The only reason that this one is down here is because I have the new cover on a different shelf. So I don't know if I want to keep this original cover or not. I don't know if they're going to continue on with this design or the new collector's design. So for now, she stays here. I have not read this book yet, but I've heard absolutely wonderful things, so I am excited to get to it. Next up, we have my 3 editions of The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. So I have the Goldsboro edition, the Fairy Loot, I believe, edition, and the Waterstones edition. The reason I've kept all 3 is because they have different quotes and pretty designs embossed on the naked spine, and I really liked this book. It's sort of like a Les Mis historical retelling mixed with the Jungle Book. It sounds weird, but I really enjoyed it. And funny enough, it's been years since I've owned these books, but the second book is finally coming out, I believe in like a week or 2, so I need to pre-order that so I at least have 1 copy of that sequel because I liked it enough to continue on. So yeah, I really enjoyed these. I would recommend giving them a try. Next up, we have How the Fox Runs by J.O. Ellis. I read this early last year, or maybe the year before that. This is just a really fun sort of time portal fantasy with a really solid romance in it. I really enjoyed this first book. I think it's indie published, but I really enjoyed it. I don't usually read a ton of indie books, not for any particular reason. I just usually find recommendations like on the shelves and stuff, but I really enjoyed this. I would highly recommend it. This cover is beautiful. I really want to read the second book. I don't know if the author is publishing it in hardcover like this one, or if I'll have to read it digitally. I'm hoping we'll get a physical copy, but yeah, I really enjoyed it and I do want to continue on. Next up is this series that I've almost unhauled like 50,000 times, but then I always hear really good things about them. And like when I reread the synopsis, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds good. And it's Only a Monster and Never a Hero by Vanessa Len. I believe a third book is coming out at some point. I really need to read these so I know if I'll want that third book. The covers are really pretty. These are the Fairy Loot editions. I don't remember what they're about, but I know that every time I go to unhaul them, I always see like a good review about them, or I read the synopsis and I change my mind. So next up is The Enchanted Lies of Celeste Artois by Ryan Groudon. This is set in Paris. It's an adult fantasy. I've loved Ryan Groudon's other books, so I'm excited to get to this. If you notice me speeding up, it's because I just got a low battery warning, so hopefully I can get through the end of this shelf before my phone dies. This next book is The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. My sister read The Binding and really liked it, and this is the book that the author came out with next. I believe it's not related, but it sounded really good, and this is the Waterstones Special Edition. Up next is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. I believe this is the Fairy Loot edition. This is a quote-unquote romantasy series that I've actually heard good things about, so I'm looking forward to reading it and seeing if I like it. I believe it's like Norse inspired, and I have liked a lot of Norse fantasy books in the past, so here's hoping. This is The Midnight Lie and the Hollow Heart by Marie Rudkowski. Marie Rudkowski is a staple in young adult fantasy, and I believe this is a sapphic fantasy duology, so I really want to get to them. The covers are stunning, and I need to read these. This next book is Zuleika. Hopefully I said that correctly. It's a novel by Guzel Yakina. This was shortlisted for the Russian Booker Prize, and it won a lot of awards. I got this on vacation like a decade ago. I really need to read it. I forgot what it's about, but I remember it sounded really interesting, so hoping to get to it at some point. And lastly on this shelf, I have a lot of sort of related books. We have The Illustrated Walden by Henry David Thoreau. We have Emerson by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Tales of Norse Mythology and Grimm's Fairy Tales. I read a lot of Henry David Thoreau and Emerson for my English degree, so I just kind of wanted those to be able to reference again. And then I've always been interested in Norse mythology and fairy tales, so I just bought these really pretty editions that I think are all under the same sort of collection. So yeah, I have paged through these first two. I have not looked at those last two, but yeah, I do like having these on my shelves. And there is that final shelf. We finally made it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this style of bookshelf tour. I tried to make it like a little tingly, but also so you could see all the different series, but not too long. I was trying to balance a lot, so let me know if you enjoyed. And thank you for watching. Before my phone dies, I will come out with the other bookshelf tours at some point. These do take a while to film, so I don't know when they'll come out, but I promise they will come out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.